Okay, welcome back to economics. This is Dr. Kling. Today's topic is market equilibrium. Last time we talked about a market clearing price. So let me just remind you, market clearing price. And what that does is it separates the bids and the offers. What I mean by that is if you found a market clearing price, there are no bids above it and no offers below it. So nobody's willing to pay more than that price, and no one's willing to sell for less than that price. You've found the market clearing price. That's what that means. And that market equilibrium is closely related to that. Again, we draw the supply and demand curves. So we have the price on this axis, quantity on this axis, and the demanders are the people who are bidding for the good. And the lower the price, the more people will demand. Suppliers are the people willing to offer the good, and the higher the price, the more offers. If we look at, so this point where they intersect is known as the market equilibrium. So this is known as the equilibrium price. We'll call that PE, and this is the equilibrium quantity transacted, QE. The reason that's the quantity transacted is that over here we have people willing to supply at a lower price than people are willing to bid. So all these people are going to trade with each other. So someone here is going to trade with somebody here, and they'd be willing to trade with each other. And over here, so the amount traded will then be equal to this point. So people in this region over on the left, to the left of the equilibrium, are willing to trade with each other till we get here. To the right, now we're at the point where we're separated. That is, the sellers want a higher price than the buyers are willing to pay, so we're separated. So over here, in this area, there are no transactions taking place, and here transactions take place all the way up to the point of quantity of QE, the equilibrium quantity. So that's this notion of a market equilibrium. In something like a centralized exchange, like the stock market, it makes a fair amount of sense that at any one instant we would be at a market clearing price and we would be at a market equilibrium. And then, of course, another instant somebody comes in with different bids and different offers. People decide that they think prices should be lower, and things change, or prices should be higher, whatever. But at any one instant, the market is you can describe it as being in equilibrium in a centralized exchange. For other purposes, I say that the concept of market equilibrium is a convenient fiction. It's a fiction for a couple of reasons. One is that the circumstances are always changing, so supply and demand are always moving around. Bids and offers are constantly changing. For another is that in decentralized markets, something that isn't as efficient as like the New York Stock Exchange and doesn't bring all the buyers and sellers together in one place, you can have situations where bids and offers in principle could match but don't. Let's say, like, I'm willing to pay $3.50 or anything less for a gallon of gasoline, but I can't find a gas station that sells gasoline for less than $3.50 a gallon. Now, there could be that there are gas stations that sell it at less than $3.50 a gallon. They're willing to sell at the price I want, but I just can't find them. So there's all sorts of reasons for markets to be out of equilibrium. There could be some kind of price control, like if there's apartments, if there's rent control, then there are going to be people who are willing to rent apartments at higher rents than people would like to offer them at, but the rent control fixes that. So there, at any moment I could be looking for a taxi and be willing to pay $10 for a taxi, and somewhere there's a taxi that would give me the ride for $10, but again, we just don't find each other. So there are all sorts of reasons why this market equilibrium concept is somewhat of a fiction, but it will find it a convenient fiction because it is so helpful in describing what happens when things change. Like what happens if there's a bad weather that wipes out a crop is a classic example, or what happens if we put a tax on a good. We can play with this concept of market equilibrium, of the intersection of the supply and demand curves, in order to answer those questions. So we act. So when you're by the time you're done with this course, you'll be using the term equilibrium right and left. You'll be talking all the time about equilibrium, what happens to the equilibrium when this happens, and so on. And so we act as if this equilibrium price, that's the intersection of supply and demand curves, we act as if it's the market clearing price. But again, in real markets, it's not so easy to arrive at a market clearing price. Just take something like the market for bread. How would we arrive at a market clearing price? It's not as if people are standing on a street corner making bids and offers for bread. Stores are posting a price for bread, and people are shopping around. And again, we take the convenient fiction, we act as if it's a very efficient, very centralized market for bread, and that it arrives at a market clearing price, but it's actually kind of a clumsy process. People have to go around and shop, and the stores selling bread have to choose a price at which they can sell at, and so on. Or let's just take the gasoline market. If you're a gasoline station, how do you decide what price to set? You don't know what the market equilibrium price is. What happens is you set a price, you look around at other gas stations and so on, you realize, well, if other gas stations are selling their gas at, let's say, $3.62 a gallon for regular gas, then if we try to sell ours for $4.20, probably going to get no buyers, and we'll be stuck with just a lot of gasoline that we've paid for sitting in our tanks underneath our station. On the other hand, if we offer our gas at $3.40, we'll sell out really quickly, but then when we go to replenish our gas from a wholesaler, we'll have to pay maybe even more than $3.40 at the wholesale price for gas, or if what we do pay for that, the price of the gas plus the cost of having it delivered and pumped and so on, we'd end up losing money. So when we see other gas stations offering around $3.62, chances are that's where we're going to set our price as well. And so if at that price a bunch of gas stations start running out of gasoline, or they start to see that their cost of their gasoline is above that, then they'll start to raise their price. If the gas stations see that the price of wholesale gasoline is coming down and they're having a hard time selling the gasoline they have at $3.62, then they're going to lower their price. So it's a kind of a messy process of getting to what we call the market equilibrium price and then at that market equilibrium price, you will have an equilibrium quantity where the demand and supply curves intersect. That is, all the people who are willing to pay at least as much as the market equilibrium price gets satisfied. All the people who are willing to sell at or below the market equilibrium price get satisfied, and these are the people who are willing to supply it at or below the equilibrium price. They're satisfied. The buyers who are willing to pay at least as much get satisfied, and then the other people have to wait for some kind of price change if they're going to do any business. So that's how we get to the market equilibrium price and quantity.